Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Friday morning mastermind. Every Friday morning, there's me, and then there's Todd, but then, Todd just walks off at the last minute. Oh, there's Todd. He's back.
Surprise, I'm back. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. It's awesome to be here and see so many new and familiar names in attendance.
Right on. So this call is all about masterminding, so it's pretty informal. We'll unmute people, bring people from the audience in. Last week, we had Mark Scheer come in. Mark Scheer? Who's Mark Scheer? No, Rick Scheer. we had Rick Scheer come in and talk about ideas and strategies, give us an update on some things. This Monday, we had Todd, myself, and Rick Scheer talking about annual reviews. So as a reminder, check that out. Todd, before I do some reviews, and I also want to give a briefing that's something that's on my mind and something that I shared to a group from stage this week, but anything you want to make sure we talk about as we kick off today's call?
No, I just want to throw a shout out. We talk about it a lot on this call, but the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind group at Facebook, we're over 2,000 members now, and we're getting lots of great conversation. And that's a great place for you to ask questions that you want us to talk about here on Fridays. That's where Dave and I are getting some of the content for today. So if you're not in there, search it out and ask to be part of it. Dave and I will let you in. And if you are there and you're part of the conversation, thanks. We appreciate it. I think it's been, I think we're getting some serious momentum in there, and I can only imagine it getting better. I'm part of a couple of real estate groups that are a lot bigger, and they've got a lot of interaction. And we have almost as much interaction with a smaller amount of people. So keep inviting your friends, keep showing up, and keep commenting and helping each other. I think we can all grow together.
Yeah, so I'm actually showing that out on my screen right now, and I do want to thank everybody who's engaging, whether you're asking a question, whether you're sharing a best practice, whether you're commenting, value. I do want to remind people there's no recruiting of any type, whether you're recruiting for a lender or you're recruiting for a business model. This is just here to, help us sell more. The idea behind this group is productivity, how to make more money in less time. That's the theme. It was inspired by Darren Hardy's Insane Productivity Program. I've been through that program. Todd's been through that program. Hundreds of mortgage coach leaders have been through Darren Hardy's Insane Productivity Program. We highly recommend that you go through that. If you are going, what is that? How do I get to be part of it? There's a link with a discount code here at the top of our Facebook group. There's a $500 discount for Mortgage Coach members. I do want to shine a light on a few things, and I'm going to do a briefing, and then we'll do Q&A. We're going to talk a little bit about rate shopping today, just because that has come up. I've been at a number of events. I think I've spoken at 4 large sales rallies so far for the year, speaking again in San Francisco next week, and I'm hearing that come up a lot. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about some scripting for getting realtor meetings. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I think that one came from this. Anyone have a go-to email or script to obtain a realtor appointment? Boom, Jeremy, we're going to jump all over that for you. Also, check this out. Craig Sewing and America Dream TV is trending. I'm just kind of going through some of the things on our Facebook group that I want to shine a light on. Let's see, there was one thing I wanted to make sure I addressed at the beginning of the call, but I'm not seeing it here. Oh, well, I'll tell you what it was, is this Tuesday, we talked about the Mortgage Coach Annual Mortgage Review. I put those slides in SlideShare. I put a link in our Facebook group, but there's email templates. There is some scripting for annual reviews, and we will continue to build out this playbook. So I did want to shine a light on that at the beginning of the call. Also, going to our YouTube channel really quick, want to remind everybody that Todd and I had a mastermind style call this Monday. We've already had 194 views. So if you are putting a lot of effort and energy around annual reviews, make sure you check that out. Also, I want to remind folks that every one of these calls is put into our YouTube channel under Friday Productivity Mastermind. And the number one call probably in a couple of years, well, in the time that we've been doing it is this Facebook marketing call with Bill Hillstock. So if you are serious about making money in less time using Facebook, I would call that a must-watch call. Todd, any commentary on that?
I think it is definitely one of the best calls, and the fact that if you actually search Bill in the Facebook group, just on that little search bar midway down, he's got his spreadsheet, which gives you access to his content, which is just phenomenal. I've already been through most of it already, but I'm already seeing people in our community make posts because I'm friends with a lot of you, and they're using his strategies, which is awesome. I know people have used his LinkedIn strategy to push people to start following their business pages, which is a little less relevant. He'll talk about why that's the case, but ultimately how to get interaction and how to get your posts seen is just phenomenal. And I continue to see a lot of people doing it the wrong way, and puts a smile on my face when I see those of you who are on that call doing it the right way.
Yeah. So and remember, you can search for anything and everything here. Also, we've got a lot of files that have been uploaded. So this is a resource that supports this call. Make sure you're familiar with it, and any questions that you have about anything, type in, go to the search bar, look for it. Lead gen, open houses, scripts, anything you want to talk about there. So a couple things. I did invite Dan Rawich to this call. Dan is going to try to join us. He may or may not be able to, and if he does, it will be in the last third of the call. But if you do have questions around interest rates, market movements, anything that just has to do with being a market expert in today's market, post those questions either on Facebook or in our GoToWebinar control panel. And when and if Dan comes in, we will bring him into the call. So,
can I throw in there real quick, Dave? Well, before you jump into your thing, I would tell you guys, if you're surprised by what's going on with mortgage bonds, it's because you're not reading Dan's stuff. Dan does it as part. He's been doing it with Rate Watch with Dave here for how many years? 4 or 5, at least.
Forever. And if you don't have the Rate Watch app downloaded, you're
right. His commentary's on there, right? But his commentary is really top notch. He does it. He's not an employee of Dave's. He does it because he loves to do it. But his commentary is really good. It gives you the talking points to talk with your clients and with your realtors. And so if you're not doing that, you can read it, you can listen to it. There's just so much there. But these are the times where you need to be plugged in and watching that, because that's the value that people need. I haven't done a loan in 19 months, and I still have people that I know calling me because they know that I pay attention to stuff like that. But I always get all my info from Rate Watch and from what Dan does. So that's my soapbox on that. And then I'll click off and let you show us what you got there, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I updated a few things. I've been talking a lot at sales rallies about this concept of lender loan officer with the most digital friends wins biggest now, 2020 and beyond. And then that's just gone all kinds of directions. Defining what is a modern loan officer. And, I put the definition up. Many of you have seen this before, but I think it bears reminding. It's a coach advisor that's capturing data on both customers and partners and putting it into a CRM so that they can customize, personalize, content and services like a total cost analysis, an annual mortgage review, lifestyle touch points like birthday reminders, updates, news, top of mind content. That's being modern. And I want to expand that thought, because I was asked at the sales rally I recently spoke to, is that, hey, a lot of folks are doing less than 10 million in production. We want to get them to 20 million a year. And then a lot of $20 million a year producers want to get to 30. So kind of like, what advice do you have for those folks? And most of my advice kind of fell into 2 buckets. One of them was the amount of, the volume of selling that you need to do, quantity of selling. And then part of it was the quality of selling. Because if you're not from a quality perspective doing it well, you can make a lot of calls and not have a lot of results. So I put this framework together, highly inspired, practically copied it from the Challenger Sale, which is a book that I've read countless times. I've done workshops on it. I'm a big fan. But, the best mortgage salespeople, the people that are top producers, let's just say closing over 100 loans a year, they're personalizing, asking great questions. Everything they do is personalized. They're teaching. They are always enlightening both realtors and borrowers, and they're leaders. They show up and they lead. They have confidence. So that is a paradigm of quality. And then it's wrapped with this concept of constructive tension. When I talk to the most successful loan officers, they know how to say no and when to say no. They know how to challenge a customer, whether it's a rate shopping situation, and again, constructive tension, not dysfunctional tension. So I wanted to share this framework that I've been working on to help loan officers kind of look at yourself. If you're doing all the prospecting you should be doing, spending all the time you've been needing to do it, but you're not getting the results you want, I'll bet you're doing a lot of generic things. You're talking to everybody the same. I'll bet your clients are not getting these aha moments where they're learning something. I'll bet, I talk to a lot of people that they personalize and they teach, but they're people pleasers. They lack the leadership skills and the constructive tension to really drive growth. So I put this together for everybody to think about how, what is the framework to a top producer in terms of how they sell. And then I also last week, I surveyed probably 20 industry coaches. Just about all of them are well-known names. I'm not going to list the names of everybody I surveyed, but some of the best coaches and trainers in the industry. I also put a post up in this community. Plus, I sent out an email to a lot of top, just top producers who close over 100 loans annually. And the funny thing is I got a lot of different answers. So it wasn't like all the responses were cookie cutter. They were different, which made me realize no wonder new loan officers and people that aren't achieving their goals, they're not clear, because there's a lot of ways to be successful. And there's a lot of sales standards to be successful, but they did have some themes. And these were the 5 themes. Top producers that close over 100 loans annually. They have clear goals and plans. They do quality prospecting that's time blocked, 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week. And if you're new, 2x that for the first 18 months. They're always upgrading their scripts and their client presentations, #mortgage coach. They relentlessly follow up. They have systems and practices, #CRM. And then they do all this consistently. This isn't like one day I do it, one day I don't. 1 week my game is on and I'm a prospecting animal. 2 weeks I'm off. No, it's a consistent, again, you've got vacations, you have downtime, but the 50 to 46 weeks that you're working, you're on. Todd, before I go to my next slide and my next concept, anything you want to add here?
I like that. I like that you're talking about the fact that you're on when you're on, and then, that leads to the other side where you're off. And if you do these things and you build a great business, that's what leads you gives you that opportunity. I see some of my clients on here, and I know that they take vacations they recently did, and that's just one of the things that's the fruit of their labors of doing such a great job of building what they've built. So you're spot on, Dave. Keep it up.
All right. So that kind of led, and again, these are slides from a recent keynote that I did at a sales rally, because they wanted me to help. If you're closing less than, let's just say less than 50 loans annually, my guess is you could fix that with these 3 slides. Literally, there is something you're not doing here. And then that led me to think, when I talk to the best of the best, whether they're using the Win by Noon planner, they're using the Win by Noon framework. So I want to remind everybody to watch the interview I did with Todd. For anybody on this call that doesn't know what Win by Noon is, it's really this simple. It's a planner that's designed for loan officers, and then there's a version for realtors, which is pretty cool on itself. And it really drives the most effective planning and activity management process there is in the mortgage industry. So when I was speaking to this group, I asked how many people have you're clear at a quarterly level, how many leads you need, how many calls you need to make, how many total cost analysis you need to do, how many annual reviews you need to do. And by the way, not very many hands went up. And again, it's one of the beauties of the Win by Noon planner is it will help you at a quarterly level. And then when I talk to the most successful loan officers that close over 100 loans a year, many of them and are trending are using Win by Noon Planner, but whether they're using the Win by Noon Planner or they have a blank sheet of paper, they're pretty intentional. They're time blocking, especially their prospecting time. It may not even be time blocking, it's just maybe a habit. From 9 to 11, I shut everything down and I get busy. But they've got a plan weekly that they're executing. Then this whole concept of reviewing your week, going back and saying, hey, I had a goal. I have these metrics I need to achieve. I have these planning habits, whether it's your morning routine, your evening routine. Going back and just spending, I don't know, Todd, what's the amount of time that you recommend for a weekly review?
I see the weekly review take anywhere from, 10 minutes if you've been organized and disciplined in what you've totaled during the week, to up to 30 minutes if you're a little less organized and you have to go back through and add up your numbers for the week. And so it just kind of comes down to what kind of work you did, and then really what else you're going to do during that time, because the weekly review to me is bookended with your week ahead action plan and really getting set up for the week, which oftentimes includes things like clearing your email if you haven't, and just going through your phone, making sure there's no voicemails or text messages that you need to respond to that maybe you haven't. And so it kind of depends on what your time block looks like the rest of the week, but I always look at, scheduling sometime. For me, I always did at least 30 minutes. Sometimes it took longer, just to make sure that I really nailed that. Right now, I still do it on Sundays. I have about a half an hour, but I'm not totaling up numbers, like this anymore since I'm not producing.
Yeah. So again, 10 minutes to 30 minutes, reviewing their week could literally be the difference between you achieving your goals of 100 or more loans and not. And one of the things I love about it is that, there's a way to track your annual reviews, and there's a way to track your total cost analysis. So a great metric. And then I would recommend, I recommend the Win by Noon Planner. Just going to the website and looking at it will make you better, will make you more effective. And then, of course, daily. So the thing I love about this is quarterly planning, monthly planning, weekly review, and then bringing that down to your day. So when you really break it down, it's quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. What are the activities you need to do to drive success and to achieve that goal of 100 or more loans a year? And again, if you're already on this call and you've already surpassed that, and now you're shooting for 150, or you're at 150, you're shooting for 200, whatever it is, it's just a change of the numbers. But the concept of this planning is the hallmark of success. So if you are doing less than 50 loans and you're on this call, my guess is just putting the planning in place and really going through this checklist right here. Am I achieving these 5 things? And if not, that's probably why you're not getting your goals. And that when I really think about the framework as me as a loan officer and a salesperson, do I personalize? Do I teach? Do I lead? Am I good with constructive tension? And if not, all of these things can be learned. All of these things can be elevated if you're, candid with yourself. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and we're going to go mastermind style. Todd, anything you want to add before we just start fielding questions and going through discussion topics?
Well, I appreciate the infomercial. I was going to try to stay off. I think the biggest thing is the planning part. One of my biggest takeaways from Sales Mastery this year was the manager day that Todd Duncan did beforehand. And he gave that statistic that 94% of loan officers go into their day with no plan for their day. And so again, I think that starts with looking at your week and planning ahead. And he said the result of that is 91% of loan officers have inconsistent month-over-month fundings. And so think about that, right? If you're riding that roller coaster that a lot of people ride because of the fact that you're inconsistent, what can you do differently? And typically it's just really thinking through your day, blocking off those most important activities. And I just, I'm not shocked by that statistic at all, but I'm shocked that when I give the statistic, that people don't always move differently. I taught yesterday to a group of real estate agents, and they said the same thing, right? It applies in their industry just like it applies in ours. And so, one of the things, I love the fact that you talk about the education and the challenger model, and I've listened to that book before. It's a great book. If you haven't listened to it and you want to improve your sales, there's a reason Dave's read it so many times. And in the realtor struggle with the same problem. So I always think if you can educate and teach, and what are you doing to get out there? And that's really where right now we're seeing the biggest growth with Win by Noon is in is in the fact that people are working with their partners now to help them grow it. And it's also holding you as a loan officer accountable, because you don't want to look flaky that you're talking to about doing it and they're doing a better job of tracking their day and their week than you are as a loan officer. And so I've seen the accountability kind of go parallel, where people are just going up because they're working together on it. So obviously I appreciate the highlight there, but in the end, whether someone's using Win by Noon or not, I mean, if you're not really blocking out your day and not planning, then you're probably going to get uncertain results.
Right on. So let's change the topic. Let's focus on how to get meetings with realtors. Also, I just noticed that Kristen Messerly has joined us in the leadership side of things. Kristen, can you unmute yourself? Can you turn on video? Are you here?
I am here. I can see you guys, but I don't think you guys should see me. I'm a little under the weather.
not a problem. So Kristen is not video ready. That's cool. So by the way, Kristen, it's great seeing you in Seattle. Her and I shared a stage together on Tuesday, and you killed it, by the way. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great sharing the stage. And I think a lot of the things that we're talking about today, we were talking about in Seattle, so good timing.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, Kristen, let's do this, because I have had a lot of questions about, price compression and rate shopping. We'll close with that. Right now, we've had a lot of loan officers say, hey, I need help getting realtor meetings. Let's have Todd riff on that, since I've already talked for 15 minutes or so. Let's have him share some best practices on getting realtor meetings. And then why don't you come in behind that, just not that it's millennial, but you're so good with that multi-channel piece, and make sure that, all the best practices, whether it's getting the meeting with the realtor, whether it's following up to the meeting with the realtor, kind of go through the checklist with, your modern loan officer platform to make sure we cover all the bases. Is that cool?
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great.
All right, so I'm going to take it off video, hand it to you, Todd, and if you wouldn't mind just going through between, your team. By the way, folks who don't know this, Todd Bookspan's team is a 500 a unit year team, and Todd, once upon a time, built that team, from nothing.
Back in the old days.
So you're talking to a guy that's closed a lot of loans, managed a team that closed a lot of loans. Mostly those loans are coming from realtors and builders. So to say he's a personal, again, he won't use the word expert, but just to say he knows more than the average LO how to get realtor meetings is an understatement. And he's also a coach. So Todd, why don't you riff through best practices? And let's try to do it from the perspective that I'm under 15 million a year loan officer, and I want to get meetings with the right realtors. Give us a checklist of what we need to think about and do, and any scripting that you have would be helpful.
Awesome. Okay, so I love talking about this. There's nothing I enjoy more than helping people figure out how to grow their business. And I'm not going to tell you probably anything you haven't heard. So I apologize in advance for those of you on here who are pros that there's no new ideas necessarily, but maybe there's just a different take on an idea that you've had. And so let me kind of talk through. Back in the day, right, all my business was from my database and from realtors. And then ironically, literally right after I committed to get out of the business and be a coach is when my team got a builder. So we didn't have that big influx of builder loans back when I was still in the originator seat, a little over a year and a half ago. So, but what I'm seeing today with my clients and with my team is still the same things that are working from before. And so I think that first off, when it comes to the checklist is just the basics, right? Where are the easy spots where you're in front of a realtor that you can get to know them so that you feel comfortable asking for the meeting? Because certainly a warm meeting is always going to be better than doing a cold call, right? And so I'll certainly talk about that. And I was successful with cold calls, but I was really successful with the warm ones. And so, I mean, again, at the most basic level, we all know it. The listing agent is your warm person that you can get to know over a 20 to 45 day transaction, depending on the speed of your market. Or you can communicate with him or her upfront about how you're going to communicate during the transaction. And you've got that opportunity to wow them and then offer up to meet with them afterwards just to get feedback. And if they want to try to give it over the phone, you can say, well, awesome. I also want to put a face to the name and get there. And so then I always look beyond that. Where are the other opportunities that you have to interact with realtors face to face? Now, of course, you can interact with them online, right? I mean, just as a very minimum. I mean, if you're not stalking them on Facebook, you're not learning about them on Facebook. It's so much easier if you're going to an event, whether it's at a particular real estate brand office, or you're going to a particular training, right? If you can't get invited to the event, then pay and go to the training and train alongside of them. I sat through Keller Williams Bold more than once. I sat through their Recruit Select program. And so not only did I actually go to their events, I got trained alongside of them. And, there you get stuck. You're at a table and you're required to interact and talk to each other. And then that forced me to be able to, after a week or two, to be able to say, gosh, you know what? I would love to get together with you and a little bit more about you and your business. Wherever you can put yourself with them so that you can have that conversation. And if you have an idea of who's in the room, you have that ability without being creepy to have a little bit more understanding about what's important to them. So as you start talking, you don't need to say, gosh, I really see that you love Chihuahuas. But if they have a Chihuahua, at some point you can drop in the story about your dog or whatever that is. But I think you have to get that easy interaction first. And if you can do that easy interaction, it's really easy to lean that into, the other interactions that you're trying to have. And so I don't think that part of it's rocket science. And it's asking questions, right? And we saw it before, the most popular video last year was Jeremy Forcier's 5 questions video. It's 15 minutes, and it is really the questions that he asks when he's face to face, which don't help you until you get face to face. And so you really have to figure out, how can I get them there? And for me, I always just kept it really generic. I find newer loan officers have to sell tools. So again, if you're less comfortable with the interaction of asking questions and driving people with, my basic script that I use in every situation is, I just really would love to get together with you, have a quick cup of coffee, learn a little bit more about you and your business. It was nothing more than that. Sometimes I said, put a face to the name to learn more about you and your business. And I just kept pushing it. And normally on a phone call, it always took 2 or 3 objections before the person said, oh gosh, all right, I'll give in and get together with you. And so again, I don't think that part has really changed. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with that, then, whatever tools you offer through your company is worth having a knowledge about. So that way you can bring the tool piece up. But I just always lead with that last. And I tend to find that as loan officers who are less comfortable having a conversation, that are a little less experienced with just that human interaction. I worked retail for 10 years. Some of I owned bicycle stores for 10 years, and I talked to people day in and day out. And I said, I train my employees, my team members, that if you can make them your friend, they're going to want to buy from you regardless, right? Because the bike business was no different than the mortgage business when it comes to rate shopping, right? There people are like, oh, I can get this same tire down the street for $1 or less. And they could, right? Oftentimes, we weren't a price leader in the business. In fact, we were a higher end shop. And so, I had those same issues, but I knew if they liked me and I took the time to educate them on bicycles, on the models they were looking at, why we sold what we sold, what was different, how to fit the right one to their needs. It's the same conversation you're having with regards to a real estate agent and helping them with tools, and you're having with a client. The harder one is the cold calls. And so, again, some of you guys have heard me talk about it before, but I went through a program where at the time I was not a huge producer, but I was doing a program side by side with the number one producer in my market, where we were going after realtors, both warm and cold. And so I remember one week, because it was the week where we had money on it, where literally I had to send a check to the coach, and the coach was going to mail either one of us the check written out to the other person if we failed to do our calls. And our calls, we had to get a hold of 20 people, 20 agents, and it could only be half agents that were warm. And of the warm agents, which were listing agents or people I bumped into at a class or at an event, I was able to get meetings with 9 out of 10 of those agents. And then the agents that were cold, I was able to actually get 3 meetings with the cold agents. And that was literally calling them up, no gifts sent up front, no nothing, and just really giving the script of, hey, we're both big producers in the market. We're going to run across each other at some point. I'd love to get together, learn a little bit about you and your business. And then again, it was overcoming the objection. And so, the objection handling, we all know the first one they're going to get. I already have a lender, right? Well, of course you have a lender. If you didn't have a lender, you wouldn't be as successful as you are. Oh, well, I'm really busy. Well, of course you're busy. I know you're doing all those transactions. And again, I only want to take about 15 minutes. I won't take any more unless you ask me to. Just want to put a face to the name and learn a little bit more about you and your business. So same script over and over again. And eventually it may just show up with me literally delivering them coffee at their office, shaking their hand. And at that point, they felt guilty and at least talked to me for a few minutes. That was hard. And again, I had to chase those people down. When I set all those appointments, I had a couple from each group that were canceling out, and it was just harder to get in front of them. The other way, and again, it's something I learned 15 years ago in the business, is the old book thing, right? So I can tell you, my team is coming into the office today, and they're all sending out this book. or mainly hand delivering it to people they know, but they're also going to mail them out. And they're going to be sending those to realtors and prospective realtors, because that reciprocity thing, if you don't know them, is going to work. And so I'm getting ready to do an interview, and we'll shine a light on it when I do, with one of my clients who's 25, and he's been doing the book campaign now for about 120 days, and he's got a 70% success rate of getting together with agents that he does not know. So he's sending books to people, and they're all different levels of agents. He's got it up to a whale, but most of them are what I'd call normal agents that are kind of normal like we are in the business, and sending the book with a letter, right, introducing himself, saying when he's going to call. Someone's asking what book is he sending. He was sending Darren Hardy's Compound Effect. I think it's whatever book you really like. I've actually got people that are doing it now with the Win by Noon Real Estate Agent Edition, some of the Win by Noon users. So it's whatever book that you know and love. You can't send a book that you don't know. I can tell you that the homework for my team is they all got to read this new book. It's my new favorite book, by Gary Vee, talking about what he's doing in the marketplace. But he can't send a book out if you don't know, and he's saying why he likes the compound effect. But it's that reciprocity. He's telling him, hey, I'm going to call you at this date. And then he calls with that script, and just says, hey, just like just want to make sure you got the book. And then he's walking through the process. And so we're going to outline that part of it. But that's the only other piece that you can do. If you really want to guarantee that you're more likely to get a hold of someone on the phone, is give them something of value, because then they feel guilty about it. Right, Dave?
Right. Hey, Todd, would you be willing, and I'm not going to, tell you by next week, but within the next 4 weeks, would you be willing to just do like a 20-minute book review on Crushing It for the mortgage coach community, where you're like, hey, I've read it. Here's my review of it. Here's what I think are the biggest takeaways for this community. Can we twist your arm to do that?
I'll commit to that. And I think what I would do is I would do it threefold, right? One would be the book itself. Two would be tying in what I learned when I went to the Gary Vee event, that Agent 2021 a couple of weeks ago in Miami. And then the third thing is I'd probably weave in what we've learned from Bill Hillstead and others in this community around social, because that's obviously what the book's about. But I'm already seeing what I've learned there that I'm trying to use in my own day-to-day on social working.
Good. All right. Well, TBD, everybody. We will get Todd back to do that. So that was a big download. Kristen, anything you want to add just from a, modern loan officer, multi-channel, anything that you'd like to add for us to think about? Oh, you made it.
So I realize I don't look quite as sick as I feel. So, and I think the authenticity is very key when we're talking about reaching realtors. So be authentic here. I think everything that Todd said was a perfect lead into some of the things or tips that I talk about related to reaching millennial realtors and realtors who are just more connected, or modern realtors, I guess. And so my whole platform, and the platform that I sell to loan officers and work with loan officers on, is called modernloanofficer.com. And so it's all about the multi-channel approach to help loan officers take their business to the next level through modern communication, modern strategies online, and using social media. So one of the things that I talk about with reaching millennial realtors is that we, and consumers, but we're going from what used to be a very linear process and industry driven. Like you were kind of more, they're coming to you, and now we're moving toward a multi-channel approach where everything is buyer driven. And the referral network, I think, has always been kind of in a similar boat, where you are working toward getting their business and trying to meet their needs. And so you got to meet them where they are. And today, it used to be that a phone call or in person was it. And today we have a lot of different channels where they're going to connect with you via Facebook, and you have a lot of other opportunities: email, text, video. Facebook, your company app, and Mortgage Coach are a few that I always kind of run through as some of the core channels to communicate. And if you watch, of course, I'm sure if you're on this call, you watch a lot of Dave's videos and interviews. One of the interviews he did with Ryan Niemeyer, I think, really did a good job of explaining what realtors are looking for in terms of communication, where he shared that if you, I think Ryan was talking about how a loan officer had done a video as a follow-up, like they had connected and then they did a short he did a short video and texted it over to him. Thinking about ways that you can communicate like that, where it doesn't take much extra time from you, but it is that still that personal, authentic connection. You're adding value to the conversation, but you're using the tools that you have. And so it's not taking away from the in-person, taking the book by in person, those kinds of things. It's following up with more. So you do a short video maybe following that says, these are the top 3 things I really enjoyed about that book, and you text it over to them. So I think that's the biggest one that I wanted to bring up, is just that multi-channel approach, and really making sure, of course, that you have a consistent presence on social media. And even though, again, it's all about authenticity on social media and about personal connection. So it's not just posting regularly, it's logging in and liking your referral partner's posts and making comments, saying congratulations on events, and staying in touch, staying in relationship. I think the really awesome thing about today's top marketing trends are that it's about you being yourself and you being more social than ever. But those are, I think, the top tips I would say. Dave, are there anything else that you think I should touch on related to this?
Well, I did want to let everybody know I just posted in our Facebook group a link to that interview with Ryan, and you had that in your slides at the sales rally. What was the quote you had from him? Because there was a quote that I really liked that I forgot that he even said it, but then I saw it on your slides and I'm like, oh yeah, that was smart. What was it?
Yeah, it's authenticity is more important than professionalism.
Got it.
It's huge.
Got it.
That's huge.
And then, go ahead, Todd.
No, I love the video part, and I think that's really critical. I was just going to shine light. We had Masters Coach here in Scottsdale last week, so we had a bunch of loan officers come in, and I ran a production roundtable, so kind of a mini mastermind. And we did something different than we've ever done. We invited a local realtor who's a buddy of mine and coached by Bill Hart, who's a big up-and-comer, young guy, around 30. I probably think he's a little bit over 30. And it was funny because he stole the show, right? We talked a lot about mortgage stuff initially, and then I finally reminded everyone we had this superstar who does a great job on social media, being his authentic self, but also really people picked his brain. And he did say, you're probably never going to it's going to be really difficult to get me because I have 2 lenders that I work with, unless you send me a deal. He said, if you have a deal for me, I'll meet with you wherever you want to meet me whenever you want. And so I want to make sure I highlight that. You all have deals that come your way that aren't attached to one of your existing realtors, right? Don't not give that relationship back to the original, know the tree that if Kristen referred Dave to me and then I get a deal that was from Dave that referred me, it goes back to Kristen at the top, right? Make sure it gets back to the right people. But when you have one of those family members of yours and you've got that realtor you want to get in front of, you got to get at least 1 deal a year and save that and use it for that perfect meeting. Because I promise you'll get a meeting when you have a deal to deliver to them. You just have to hold the deal as hostage to meet with them. You're not going to call them and lob it to them over the phone. You're going to say, well, I really need to meet with you to go over this person. So I didn't want to forget that one because you all have it.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're doing your annual reviews, you have lots of buyer referrals that you could give to agents that you've been going after. So it looks like Dan Rawitz has joined us. Dan, are you here?
Yes, sir. I'm on the call, Dave.
All right, buddy. I'm going to bring you in like no more than 2 minutes. I want to just debrief on everything you just heard. Like, for the person that made that post, how do I get realtor meetings? One of your takeaways should be there's a lot of ways. It's limitless. Hopefully another takeaway is that it's multi-channel. It's not just email. It's not just in person. It's Facebook. It's all kinds of videos. It's video via text. It's video via Facebook Messenger. I find that often why loan officers aren't successful, because they know what to do, is they just don't have the confidence. Like, you're almost afraid to get in that meeting because you don't know what you're going to say. You're not comfortable that I'm going to be able to wow this whale agent. And so for those of you that it's a confidence issue, be honest with yourself. And then if it's a confidence issue, listen to that call with Jeremy, get clear on the questions that you're going to ask before you go to the meeting, rewrite the questions you're going to ask. do a lot of research before the meeting so that you know that person. Just again, if it's a confidence issue, invest in that. But there should be no loan officer that if you want to close 100+ loans a year, that you're doing it all and figure out what's right for you. So with that said, there's been a lot of changes in rates, up, down, all around. There's no one better than Dan Rawich at being a market leader. If you don't know who Dan Rawich is, you're just not paying attention to the mortgage coach community in Rate Watch app. Every day, Dan is providing some type of update, whether that's a video update, whether he writes it up based off his travel schedule, but he's always telling us, giving us cliff notes on what's happening in the market. So Dan, there's been so much change and it's been such a big topic. Do you mind just giving everybody, 5 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, kind of what's happening, where do you think it's going, and what should loan officers be telling both realtors and clients in today's market?
Thanks a lot for having me. Hi, everybody. Hi, Todd. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, by the way, Dan, you're not in a place where you can turn on a video, can you? Can you flip on a video?
All right. I don't look very pretty. I don't look as good as Kristen, that's for sure. I do look better than you, though, Dave.
I was going to say, none of us do, and
that's not
it would be hard
so.
to beat me.
Oh, my God.
Oh, come on, man. You look good. Yeah, mess up your hair a little bit. There you go.
Terrible. Okay. All right. Okay.
I like the new haircut, though, by the way.
Yeah, I need a haircut. Can I show a slide, Dave?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm passing you to the screen, making you a presenter.
All right. By the way, I love that quote that Kristen said that authenticity is more important than professionalism. That means it's my time, baby. Because I've always been good at one and not so good at the other. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
We can.
Okay, good. So I did a write-up this morning, and I talked about some of this stuff. And so I'm going to start going really macro, and of course I'm going to talk fast. I don't have a lot of time. From a micro standpoint, yes, rates are going up. Yes, we've been in a downward channel for some time. And of course, the math is all saying rates are going up and we're entering a bear market for bonds. And anyone that's followed me for more than a minute, and some of you have followed me for 10 years, I am a contrarian. But I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I think I'm going to be a contrarian when I grow up. I actually don't want to be a contrarian. I mean, some people like to be contrarians just for the sake of doing that. But what I found, and I never forgot, in my very first business class in college, the instructor said, if you want to be rich when you grow up, there's one thing you have to remember, and that is the math is always wrong. 100% of the time throughout history, the math is always wrong. When the math is all buying, it's time to sell. When the math is all selling, it's time to buy. That's kind of obvious, right? Now, again, it's all about timing, right? Because the math has been buying homes for a really long time. By the way, I'm not predicting the end of a real estate market. I'm not predicting necessarily the end of anything. But the point I am making is the math, the economists, et cetera, and even the Fed are kind of saying it's time for higher interest rates. And I wholeheartedly disagree. So I want to talk about that from a macro standpoint. One thing nobody is talking about, you hear about the government debt, and you can see how that's just been swelling since the 80s, and certainly after the last meltdown of 2007, it grew tremendously. But government debt is $24 trillion. Look at the total debt in America when you take consumer, corporate, and overall financial debt. It's $71 trillion. So our problem is not the government balance sheet. Our problem is the rest of the world's balance sheet, rest of the country's balance sheet. We are a highly levered nation. We have never had this much debt in the world. So one of two things happen, right? When people get rich, they start making lots of money. Forget rich. The economy gets better. They start making more money. I don't know that they keep spending right now. We're not seeing that, and I'll show you another chart. I think they de-lever. What do you guys do right now? I mean, I've had a few good years. I've de-levered. Of course, there's another whole macro piece here about we all hit our peak spending age at about age 46. The affluent hit their peak spending age at about 54. So I've passed that point. I don't really think about big, huge, fancy cars and big, huge, fancy houses anymore. I'm in a different mentality, but I'm also delevering, and I think society needs to delever. Delevering equals deflation. It always has. So while everyone's talking about inflation, I see exactly the opposite. I see a country that has to delever very badly. If they don't delever willingly because the economy is good, that's the good way to get out of this. They're going to delever unwillingly, and that's going to get ugly. That's when you see default, massive default, and that's what's triggered basically every massive sell-off we've ever seen. Every massive recession has come from some default somewhere randomly. It was the Russian ruble in '98. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This is probably the primary reason I don't buy higher rates. I don't buy inflation. I buy deflation. I buy lower rates. Next chart. Everything runs in cycles. And again, I'm more of a macroeconomic guy. And this is an 80-year cycle. And right now, we are in the winter season. And we entered the winter season in about 2009, go figure, right after the crash. And winter is the season of delevering. And it's exactly what's happening right now. And we're going to continue to delever until about 2023, which, by the way, is about when Kristen's homeboys and home gals are going to start reaching their peak buying periods. And so much for the delevering, you're going to see the millennials start going into a buying frenzy. And I believe that this decade, 2023 on, is going to be incredible for our industry, for the economy, etc. That's kind of when I fear maybe some rates ticking up. Not now. Now we're in winter. It's not time. Next thing, we talk about wage growth. Wage growth is really what triggered the last big sell-off in interest rates. And so I want to make this point. Look, number one, wage growth was way higher in 2016, 2017. Why we didn't have higher rates then? Why was that? Well, because we didn't have the Trump effect. We didn't have the stock market bubble that was just building and building and building. And by the way, wage growth does not look very good relative to other periods. You can see wage growth much higher from 2002, 2008. You can see wage growth much higher in the 90s and 2000. And then the last thing, again, I don't mean to sound doomsday-ish here. I'm just showing you facts. You can make your own decisions. Wage growth gets too high, it triggers a recession. Why? Because what does the Fed do when he fears wage growth, or she? They're doing it now. They start pushing up interest rates. I would say the Fed caused the last recession in a big way, and they caused the one before that because they're trying to get ahead of the curve because they're still scared about what happened in the 70s. This is not the 70s. So I don't buy this wage growth thing. Yeah, we have a little bit of wage growth, but it's the people that are making $35,000 a year that don't move the economy. Their income goes up 2.7, 2.8%. That's good. I'm happy for them. That's not going to drive the economy. If we see wage growth in the jobs that are $80,000, $90,000 a year, that's when I'll fear a little bit of inflation. But no matter what I say about wage growth, it's way overshadowed by the first chart I showed you with America's need to delever. Last but not least, where's the growth? There's no growth in this economy. The Fed's target for GDP is 3%. Where is that? I mean, I don't see it. I haven't seen it for a long time. More importantly, let's look back into the history, and you can see following every recession in history until now, we've had massive GDP growth. After the Great Depression, GDP growth was up 10, 12, 13%. The next recession, in 1940, GDP was over 15%. I won't read every one of these to you, but you can see the red lines were recession, and the green lines were above 3%. The blue line is 3%. So you can see after every recession, we had growth well above the 3% level. Here was our recession, the one that you and I lay in bed at night worrying about happening again. We never fully recovered. We've had an average of 1.48% growth since that last recession. Again, I ask you, where's the growth and how could these high interest rates be possible? So I believe the math is wrong once again. So I'll leave it there, Dave. I know I've gone more macro, and I know a lot of our listeners are really worried about today, right now, what's going to happen with my pipeline.
Yeah,
So I love that.
And go ahead, Todd.
Questions? Well, I would just love, can you help Dan, I mean, I think for those of us who are econ nerds like me, like that was, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
I didn't hear any of that. I'm sorry. I saw your lips moving.
No worries. I would just love, if you can hear me now, I would love, can you give just 30 or 60
Dave,
second script
Todd?
at the app?
Yeah, I hear him, Dan. It must be you. I'm going to have you quit sharing your screen because maybe that's, you're using too much bandwidth. I hear everybody.
All right, can you hear us now, Dan?
I don't know what happened.
All right, we lost you. I was hoping.
We hear you, Dan. Kristen, by the way, can you hear everybody?
Yes.
Got it. So it's just something on your side, Dan. So I just heard an echo.
Did you guys hear any of that?
Well, we heard the whole thing. Can you hear us now?
Yay! Now
All right,
you.
awesome.
I switched from phone to computer. Sorry,
I would just love a 30 or 60 second script for a loan officer when they have a realtor or they're in front of a client who says, "Hey, what's going on with rates?" What would you tell them to kind of dumb it down for the average person? That brilliance you just shed on us.
Todd, you want me that more like short term? Like, what do they want to tell people is going to happen tomorrow, or more of a long term view in terms of the elevator pitch?
Well, like maybe a 2018, yeah.
Do both. Give us the quick one, and then give us the bigger one, and everybody can kind of figure out how to paste those together or do them separately.
Okay. First of all, right now the Dow is down 500 points from its opening. I think it's down almost 300 points as we speak. It was up 250, almost 300 points when I woke up this morning. We're now down 3,000 points from January 22nd. The economy can't withstand this. Trillions of dollars of wealth are leaking out the back door. Bonds, when I woke up this morning, were horrible. Right now, I don't know if you guys can still see my screen. Looky there. I mean, that's a nice move, right? So we are beginning to see a correlation between interest rates and bonds once again. I hate to say it because I've been like the broken watch that's only right twice a day. I've been calling the end of the stock market for, I don't know, 5 years. I think this time it might be happening. These are the classic signs of the beginning of a bear market. Huge volatility, 1,000-point sell-offs, followed by 500-point gains. So I think what I would be telling buyers is I think that the stock market is going to drive interest rates lower in the short term. The other thing that I would be telling buyers is watch oil. Oil just dropped below $70 a barrel. I think it's back in the mid-60s, lowest it's been in 2018. You know what happened last time that oil dropped anywhere near 50? We saw incredibly low rates. So I think the table is set now for a rebound. But most importantly, again, I don't want to get too complicated. Sorry, let me see if I can open up this chart.
Oh, hey, let me give me back the screen, Dan. I took the screen from you, but you have it again now.
Okay, thanks. So this was a channel. Whoops. This was a channel that I drew, I think yesterday, and so you can see we've been in this downward channel since early mid-December, and until we can see one of these candlesticks pop out up here, we're going to continue in a downward channel. I think what's happening now is we're going to work our way and touch the top of the channel. So I think short term we're headed to kind of a par 100.50. I think that's coming pretty quick, maybe today or Monday. And then we got to hope to break out. Once we break out of this, I think we're going to see a significant rally. So I'm getting more and more bullish short term as stocks are falling. 2018, I still believe we're going to see the 10-year bond stay somewhere in the mid-twos. I don't believe we're going to see threes. Maybe it touches threes in some reactive mode, but I'm still pretty bullish here. Long term, fall of 2018, we might see really low rates. We might even see some slight signs of a recession. We might see GDP dip if the Fed raises 1 or 2 more times. This economy can't stand another raise, in my opinion. So what I'd be telling realtors is I think rates are going to get better, but you never want to tell buyers that, right? That's one, who knows? I could be wrong. 2, they could hate you forever if you're wrong. So I always tell buyers, yeah, rates might get better, but look how good they are now. And if housing prices go up another 3 or 4 or 5%, you lost a lot of money by waiting for lower rates. But if a realtor is more concerned about, hey, I'm really worried about my business, I would say don't worry about your business. I think it's going to be really good.
Got it. So if you guys have questions, post them. I will take a link because Dan does this update every morning. So you want talking points so that you're a market expert, you know what's happening. Watch the Dan Rovich market update. Make sure you download the Rate Watch app. Make sure that that is, part of your daily rigor to be a mortgage coach professional. In terms of helping families understand different interest rates based off of their beliefs and assumptions, make sure you're putting those into a total cost analysis so that they understand that. So Dan, all in all, though, what I pulled away from that, it's just all the more reason that you should be doing annual reviews because, for all the macro reasons, you're a mortgage professional. You do not want to get run over by the internet companies that do mortgages because they're just getting better. They're getting better at predicting who's going to refi. They're getting better at predicting who's going to buy. They're using multi-channel communication to be there at the right time. If you want to protect your database and you want to maximize your database, you need to be doing annual reviews. And it sounds from what Dan's telling me, there's going to be a lot of incremental loan opportunities within your database in 2018 and 2019. Is that fair enough to say, Dan?
I think that's a great point. And it's a great point for a few reasons. One is you go back to that first chart I showed, the amount of debt that consumers are carrying and their need to de-lever. Maybe they don't want to part with cash, but Americans have equity. Americans have equity again, and it's still a pretty cheap way to refinance your debt. Cash out refis. Our company recently did a statistic, and it was almost 26% of our current pipeline are cash out refis. So they're still there. They're alive and good. It's probably more cash out refis than we saw last year. So and especially as the Fed starts raising short-term rates, car loans and credit cards and all that stuff that were variable go up. So yeah, I think a annual mortgage review showing, hey, you do have equity in your home. Rates are still 4.25. Why are you carrying this 8, 9, 10, 12, 18% debt? Let's get rid of that. And the other thing too is think about old guys like me. I'm 59 now. I don't really want a lot of debt. I may not refinance for a lower rate, but I sure would refinance for a lower term. A few years back, we went into a 10-year mortgage. So we always forget to talk to people about that. We always think they want a lower payment because that's how we've been groomed to think. But the majority of society are baby boomers. And baby boomers, we want to recast our debt, in my opinion. We want to figure out a way to get that mortgage paid off faster. And if you can show them how to do that, I think you could win.
So I think three good takeaways for the crew here. I think 3 good takeaways, Dave, for the crew here. Even after coming off our call this week with Rick Shear where we talked about it, but 3 things that we didn't mention, and Dan nailed 2 of them, right? I mean, cash out refinance, if you got people with debt, make sure we're asking that and dig deep on it and then use your total cost analysis to show them the savings, even if their mortgage rate's slightly higher, but the overall cost of their debt. I think the second thing, and we haven't been talking about it enough, is the shortening up the terms because I'm 10 years behind Dan, but I just downsized this last year. And so I do think we're going to see more of that. And I think the third thing is that we haven't talked about is be setting a target rate with your clients. If you don't get off of your annual mortgage review and you have a target rate of what would move them, then you're wasting time. Save time while you have them on the phone and figure out, well, what would work if today's rate isn't their rate? Because you just heard Dan say rates are probably going to come down. And wouldn't it be a whole lot easier if I had an agreement with you on the phone when I did your annual mortgage review or in person that said, gosh, you know what, if rates hit 3.75, I'm going to refinance, and then you can just pull the trigger and go. But you've got to set that with them now so that you're not having to do another review with them at the time that rates drop to see if now is the time or not. Does that make sense?
Makes tons of sense. And one last reminder with everybody is with the new tax law changes, HELOCs are no longer tax deductible. So there's so many reasons to do an annual review. It makes that customer a customer for life because you're showing up as a lifetime consultant and coach to them. You're going to get refis. You're going to get purchase leads that you can give back to your partners, and you're going to position yourself so that internet companies, online companies, technology companies that do mortgages will not be able to take your clients away if you're doing an annual review. And again, the referrals that you bring back. So, hey, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. I want to remind everybody, engage, interact in our Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind group. If there's some things you want to make sure we talk about next week, let us know. Kristen Messerly, it was great to have you on this call. Thank you for showing up. And Dan.
Can I make one more point, Dave?
So bring it.
I can't resist because what Todd said was amazing to me. said he's 10 years behind me, which makes him 49-ish. That macro trend, when Americans hit 47 years old, 46 or 47, they start thinking about delevering, getting smaller, and no more of this grandiose spending. And what that says to you as a loan officer is stop thinking that everybody thinks like you. Think about how I think about how Todd thinks, and then of course think about how Kristen thinks, because we're all different. And when you do that annual review, look at their date of birth and remember to talk to them about that. Say, hey, Todd, I noticed you're probably getting ready to hit 50. Have you thought about maybe going into a 10 or 15-year mortgage? So anyway, I wanted to get that in there for my dog.
Yeah, no, thank you for getting it in there. And let us know what you thought of today's call. Did you love it? You surpassed expectations? If you're a guest and you want to demo a mortgage coach, click the last option. Everybody has a fantastic weekend, and thanks for everybody's contributions. This call is a wrap. See y'all later.
That was awesome. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see y'all next week.